Black Power, y'all. This is Alex reporting on the final word of the Bernard Sanders campaign on this Super Tuesday, where either Bernard gets murked by Joe Biden, or if he goes on to win the presidential nomination. We at Black Hammer are condemning Bernard Sanders and any so-called revolutionaries who are willing to sell out the revolution for the sake of short-term individual gains. These people who are coming out like Chuck D, like Killer Mike, sucking that Bernie Sanders dick, aren't real revolutionaries. These are opportunists. Because Bernard is not a socialist. He is a liberal and a white supremacist. Oh yes, we're going to get into it today. So as we know, opportunism and liberalism are not compatible with socialism. So the misconception that liberalism is somehow a lesser evil than white supremacy and white nationalism is flat out a lie. Rest assured, Grandpa Bernie is a white supremacist, and that anyone running for president of the United States of America is a white supremacist. Any laws put out by liberals, by neo-Nazis, are going to be identical. You have to check the receipts. Bill Clinton, who quadrupled the size of the prison industrial complex, or Barack Obama, the hero of liberals all over the country, dropping bombs on Africa, deporting more indigenous people than any president before him. That is the legacy that Bernard Sanders is trying to inherit. And it's certainly the legacy he has helped to preserve. So voting someone into that system to try and tear it down is like trying to get a dog to eat itself alive. It's the Department of Defense lining all of these candidates' pockets to uphold white supremacy, not including Bernard, especially Bernard. So before we get into it, let's clear up a few things about socialism, what it is and what it ain't. Socialism is not nationalizing the wealth. It is not higher taxes for the rich and distributing that wealth amongst the working class. All that is a welfare state, which is still capitalism. Bernard is a capitalist. He is a colonialist. Socialism is about overturning the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie and enforcing our own dictatorship of the colonized working class. Bernard is not proposing a free healthcare plan. Remember, he's a capitalist. He's a colonialist. What he is proposing is a healthcare plan for white settlers paid for with the blood of colonized people. The most dangerous procedures and drugs coming out of that system to be tested on African and colonized people. The machines produced by African and colonized people. The metal pulled from the ground to produce the machines. That is the real cost of Bernard's white supremacist, colonial welfare state. The United States government was born to be parasitic. Bernard is a product of this parasitism. So he also needs the blood of colonized people to prop up his version of white supremacy. The best example of this is in his Green New Deal, where European and other colonizer countries in the developed world are overwhelmingly responsible for greenhouse gas emissions, and yet it is countries like Bolivia and colonized people who are expected to pay the price for these lavish lifestyles. See, Bolivia has the highest reserves of lithium on the planet. The batteries for electric cars, for phones, anything to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in America, all of that stuff needs lithium. And the United States government backed a fascist coup in Bolivia to keep those lithium reserves cheap for the sake of white settlers. It is in the interest of colonizers to back fascist coups, to commit genocide, to bomb other countries, to fund their lifestyles. It is a fundamental truth to them that committing violence makes their lives better, makes their stuff cheaper. That is the cost. And Bernie Sanders knows this. He is no different. He is not going to dismantle the system that puts money in his own pocket. Because war is a machine to generate revenue. And that revenue also goes into Bernard's bank account. The Department of Defense has made him into a very rich man. And you don't have to take my word for it. Again, Google it. Gotta check those receipts. Because politicians lie, but the receipts don't lie. 2016 presidential election. Bernard takes $366,458 from the Department of Defense. In the 2020 presidential election, so far, he has taken over $100,000 from the Department of Defense, more than twice what they gave to President Trump. Bernie voted twice in 1998 for regime change wars in Iraq, for the CIA to overthrow Saddam Hussein, and to tighten economic sanctions, killing as many as 500,000 Iraqi children. Bernie voted in favor of the war in Serbia 3 different times. He voted for the 2001 authorization for unilateral military force against terrorists created by George W. Bush. He has denounced Hugo Chavez and the government of Venezuela. He has consistently supported sanctions against Russia, voted to fund the F-35 fighter jet program to the tune of $1.5 trillion. Bernie supports the Israeli occupation of Palestine. He supports the coups in Venezuela and Bolivia. He has voted to extradite Assata Shakur from Cuba to have her die in a U.S. prison. Those are the receipts. And the receipts don't lie. Bernie is an imperialist. Grandpa Bernie loves voting for wars because wars literally made him a millionaire. So voting Bernie Sanders into the presidency will not overturn imperialism. America can only correct itself by setting itself on fire. That is how deeply baked into the system this violence is. Which begs the question, why are so many people lining up to suck that Bernie Sanders dick? It's because he represents the fantasy of a moderate genocide. Like I said, the white settler fundamentally understands that genocide is in their material interest. They are the white whipping class. And bombing the Middle East makes their gasoline cheaper. Forcing children into coltan mines in Congo makes their laptops cheaper. It is in their material interest to commit genocide. But colonized people who have been struggling in a literal war against colonialism for 600 years, we are the ones who make real socialism happen. We are where the theory for socialism comes from. We are the ones who made the revolutions happen to bring it about into existence. We never needed a white savior to drop socialism in our laps. We have had to make that shit happen. If you want a garden, you need to till the soil, and you need to create the compost. You need to water the seeds. You can't just wait for the garden to appear. And Black Hammer is not waiting around for a white supremacist like Bernie Sanders to magically change into a revolutionary. Bernard ain't it. The system that produced Bernard ain't it. We are doing the work. So ditch white supremacy, ditch the ballot, and join Black Hammer. Black power, y'all.